Hi everyone, Dwayne here, and thanks for joining me on this, the first piano lesson on my new channel, Tunes Over Twiddlybits. If you haven't yet seen my introductory video and therefore don't know what this channel is about, I can give you a summary here. I'm planning to use this channel to share with you the tips I've come up with in my over 20 years of figuring out largely on my own how to play the piano in a useful, functional way. Now I emphasize that because I did have some piano lessons, quite a few years of piano lessons as a child, but what I came away from them with was bits and pieces of classical tunes that I had swatted for examinations, which were really not of any use to anybody. The whole time I was being groomed, or so I was told, to play in church. That was the objective behind my parents sending me to piano lessons. It somehow never materialized that I was able to play the piano in church. Just didn't have the tools. And so I ended up wandering away from it, quitting in frustration and going back on my own terms. And it is the exploration of the piano when I went back on my own terms, doing what I wanted to do, that finally got me somewhere. And it is those tips that I want to share with you on this channel. So before we get into the meat of the matter, let me tell you how I plan to proceed. I found that I only made progress when I had the freedom to pick a song that I liked and to work on it, trying to figure out the harmonies as I was hearing them in my head, trying to find the sounds that I needed to construct the particular sounds I was hearing, and therefore be able to transfer them, to reproduce them on the piano. Playing a song focuses your mind, and it breaks the boredom of endlessly practicing scales and arpeggios and all the rudiments that are really so important. I'll never deny that, but on their own, they're pretty dry. And my experience was that when I was doing many of those things in piano classes, I had no idea how most of it would apply in a practical situation, and hence I wasn't motivated. My hope is that by giving you a tune, teaching you information in bite-sized chunks, and then showing you almost immediately how it can be used in a practical situation, you will feel more motivated to continue. In fact, you might even be more energized to learn more of the fundamentals because you can see immediately how it will be able to spice up your playing. Lastly, in the introductory video, I played for you the well-known hymn, Jesus Loves Me, This I Know. Some of us may not even consider it a hymn. It's something we learn in Sabbath school or Sunday school. But the point is that that song is simple enough to be played with the three most basic chords that you will find in any key. And that is the song I propose to use to start with. We won't stick with that song forever. But I'm asking you to join me on this journey because I'm sure it will pay dividends. So, that said, let's get started. So, even if you're an absolute beginner, I imagine you have seen a piano keyboard before, so it certainly shouldn't be strange to you what it looks like. But my first question is, have you ever taken the time to actually look at the configuration or the pattern of the piano keyboard? And it doesn't matter whether it's a piano or a synthesizer keyboard or even an organ. The layout is fundamentally the same. And of course, taking it for granted that you are not familiar with the layout of the keyboard, it's appropriate for us to start with how we name the notes. So let's have a look. Now I can tell you that this is a full-size piano, which means if you count all the black notes and the white notes from one end to the other, not skipping out any notes, you will end up with 88 notes or keys. Now, in this context only, we can use the terms notes and keys interchangeably, but that is dangerous because it won't be long from now when key is going to mean something else. Now, so in this context, I think it's prudent for me to stick to the term notes. A note meaning either black or white, all of these that you see laid out that compose the keyboard. It's 88 of them when you have a full-sized instrument. Now there are some instruments, for instance, a 9-foot Steinway grand piano comes to mind, where they will have a few more than the 88 notes. I'm not sure exactly how many. I've seen a few of them in my time. But you will also have some keyboards that have 61 keys, or some a bit fewer than that. But standard size is known to be 88. Now, the logical question then is that is whether or not we have to learn 88 different names, a different name for each of the 88 notes. And I can tell you straight up that that is not the case. There are actually only 12 different notes on the piano. No, that doesn't translate to 12, just 12 different names, because each of those notes has more than one name. But for our purposes, we will choose a name or two, depending on the color of the note. We will choose a name or two and just stick to those. We won't go too far afield to look at the alternative names that notes may have. That's further down. So for our purposes, there are 12 different notes on the piano. So you only need to learn how to name each of those 12, and you can by extension name every note on the piano. How does that work? Logically, because those 12 notes repeat themselves over and over. And with that in mind, I'm encouraging you to look at the configuration of the keyboard and the layout of the white notes as against the black notes. Now, I'll be quiet for a minute, or a few seconds really, and encourage you to just look at it. And then I will talk about some of the features which hopefully you would have picked up on your own. Okay, so one thing that we can tell is that the white notes are longer than the black notes. If you look at it, the white note runs from the back of the keyboard right down to the front, whereas the black notes, they run from the back of the keyboard down to about a little more than half the length of the white notes. Also, the white notes are side by side. There are no spaces as far as the white notes are concerned, but if you look at the black notes, you see spaces. If you look here, you see there's a set of, well, there's one, because really, let's forget this. There's one here. It's just because that's where they choose to end the keyboard. But really, if you're looking at a recurring pattern, you will look and notice that there are two black notes here. Then there's a space. Then you have a set of 3 black notes, a space again, then 2, space, 3, space. And if you look, the pattern carries on. 2, space, 3, space, 2, space, and so on. Here, then 2, then 3, 2, 3, right to the end. And you will also notice that the black notes sit pretty much in the cracks between 2 white notes. If you look at it, it's almost smack in the middle between 2 white notes. Wherever you see a black note, that's how it is. Here, everywhere. So, if you've noticed that, then you will see that there's a repetitive pattern that makes up the keyboard. Essentially, the piano keyboard is made up, or the keyboard, whether it's organ, synthesizer, whatever, this type of keyboard is really composed of this pattern right here. The 2, then the 2 black notes, then the space, then the 3 black notes, and it ends. Then it starts over again here. If you have a look. And then again here and here. So here it starts here, which is why I said disregard these 2 notes, because these are just a holdover from, it's like this top part of the pattern. They chose to cut off, let's say they chose to cut the piano keyboard like right here, which is why you only end up with these notes. But had it continued down here, beyond where you can see, had it continued down in this direction, it would have been a complete set of the pattern that you keep seeing. So here it is. There's 1, 2, the patterns are identical. Notice that all the notes are exactly in the same spot. No spaces with the white notes, and then you have the black notes in the cracks, a little over half the length of the white notes. 2 of them, then a space where there's no black note in between these 2 white notes, and then 3 black notes, and then a space, and that ends the pattern. In the middle of the space here where there's no black note, where there are 2 white notes side by side, the first of those white notes completes the pattern. The second white note commences a repetition of the identical pattern that we keep seeing. So it's here, followed by here, followed by here, followed by here, followed by here, and it goes on. So, learning that pattern, and I'll leave you with this for our first lesson. Learning and understanding this pattern and knowing how to name every single note as it falls here will allow you to name every single note on the keyboard, because the point is, whatever this note name this note has, for instance, When you see the pattern repeating itself, the note that is in this spot has the very same name every time you see the pattern repeat itself. And that goes for every single note inside this configuration. So I leave you with that. The keyboard, regardless of the fact that it is 88 notes or however many they have, 61 or a bit more than 88, whatever, it's basically this pattern repeating itself constantly. Join me next time and I'll actually get into naming the notes. Thanks and see you soon.